You can be part of this conversation. We're in Cape Town today. We're talking about local government. We've got the SALGA Council of Mayors that are meeting here, and we've got many of them here in this room today. If you want to put a question through to them, hashtag TNA BizBrief. We'll pick up those questions there, and that's BIZ, hashtag TNA BizBrief at Morning Live SABC. But let's go to the floor here at this venue where we've got a few mayors who are going to pose some questions themselves, starting with Franz Machulo, who's on table number 2. If you could stand up. Thank you very much indeed. Just tell us where you're from, and then we can, so that our audience know who you are.
No, thank you very much. Let me appreciate this opportunity. My name is Franz Tankiso Machulo. I am the mayor of Tsolopele municipality in the Free State, Hlasela area, under the leadership of Ace Magashule. My question is straight and forward. It's all about the mayoral book. In fact, my question goes straight to my president, Councillor Tau, Baxter, to say that when will they quickly sign the mayoral book, because that thing creates a problem for us as mayors in our area.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, okay, so mayoral book, I'll get you to answer that. We go to table number 10, Sarah Bartman, District to Municipality, where we find Councillor Kikan. Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Peter, and thanks for the opportunity. To our president and to George, from my side, I'm Kunjuzwa Eunice Kekana, the executive mayor of Sarah Bartman District Municipality. Very vast one, Peter. We are about 60,000 square kilometers, 7 municipalities. My question is on infrastructure. From where I'm coming from, most of our towns are more than 250 years old. So you can imagine the infrastructure has aged, it is aging, we are facing spillages, we are facing everything. And yet economically, we are supposed to be radical in changing everything. Now the road networking, economically, we are of agriculture, very much popular in agriculture, of our commodities that we are having. What support then can we be assisted with when funding is to be allocated to municipalities? Because we have historical backlogs, but the funding that we are getting is actually not responding to that. I thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. That's the Mayor of Sarah Bartman District Municipality. Let's go to Councillor Zulu, who's on table number 15. Mandeni Municipality.
Thank you, Mr. Ndoro, and the panelists, my colleagues. I want to firstly congratulate the government of the day led by the ANC for their commitment on infrastructure development, and I can attest that the whole nation is under construction. But there is one issue that I think we have to look at as SALGA, the infrastructure maintenance, because we have been to in fact, we've been to developing our small towns, our rural municipalities, but the main issue is the maintenance of what we have built. And I think as SALGA, we have to do much more in terms of advocating for the funding for maintenance of the facilities, so that we can make sure that we give life to our infrastructure that we have already developed. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Okay, so maybe the last two, similar funding, infrastructure, how do we help? Okay, so gents, let's deal with it. Let's start with what is the mayoral book and when will it be signed?
Well, you know, the mayoral handbook is an important issue, and we've had a discussion with Minister Van Rooyen, the Minister of Kokta, in this regard. And I'll make a few examples so that you understand why it's an important issue for our local leaders. We, as local government, would have received a memo from the former minister that says, well, municipalities can allocate, let's say, a mayoral house. Yeah. And then you get a memo the next year that says, no, you shall not have a mayoral house. Now, in 1 year you can buy, and the next year you should sell. There's a problem. Right. You receive a memo like last year, at the end of last year, that says, well, when in the past you could have a vehicle for the mayor and the speaker, now they must have a pool car. And how do you operate a pool car between a mayor, deputy mayor, and a speaker? Which event becomes prioritized? How do you prioritize? It becomes a complex issue to manage. It's as mundane as that. And I think what mayors are saying is you need clarity, you need certainty, you need a measure of consistency in the way in which we're dealing with this, because you don't create unnecessary audit queries. Because if you don't do it, it generates an audit query. The mayor looks like they've acted in a manner that's irregular, but that's simply because actually the regulation changes year in, year out. And we are calling for a consistent handbook. As I said, we recently had a meeting with Minister Van Rooyen and Deputy Minister Nel, at which we raised the issue of the mayoral handbook and the consistency with which we deal with remuneration of councillors, including matters of the consistencies around pension funds and those issues, because those are important. We've had many councillors that have left the system whose pension funds have not been paid out because of administrative issues and a whole range of other issues that affect the way in which our public representatives are able to execute their work. And we think this handbook is important. We are waiting the minister to give us authorization that we can then have a standard handbook, and that this is authorized by the Commission on Remuneration of Public Office Bearers. So that's really the issue that we're dealing with.
Is there a timeline, do you think?
At this point, the minister hasn't confirmed. If it was up to us as the NEC, we would have said we have the next NEC in July. We will come with a decision in July. We're likely to present a firm set of recommendations to the minister, but matters that relate to councillor remuneration are guided by, in the first instance, the Commission on the Remuneration of Public Office Bearers, and secondly, it has to be signed off by both MECs and the minister. So that process needs to go through for us to be able to do it.
Funding, and this is a perennial problem. Every time I sort of engage with you and your municipalities, I hear this all the time. And it's the smaller municipalities, the ones that are furthest away with very few citizens that they can draw funding from in terms of rates and taxes, that actually need a lot of the help. But funding, is this issue being solved? How is it being dealt with? Yeah.
Well, let me go first. I'll just introduce the issue, and the CEO will come in. What we have been arguing for with government is that we need a bigger slice of the cake to go to local government. So far, 9.1% of the national fiscus is directed to local government, and we believe that that's inadequate. We've raised it yesterday with the Finance and Fiscal Commission. They've agreed with us in principle. So it's a matter that they have done a study on and will be presenting to government. My belief is that we need to give the FFC a bit more teeth so that their recommendations can be implemented. Because they've been making recommendations, but a lot of these recommendations are not implemented. So if, like other Chapter 9 institutions, they have teeth, then their recommendations will be implemented. Secondly, we are looking at innovative financing instruments, particularly for lower capacity municipalities that are unable to access the debt capital markets. We've investigated pooled financing mechanisms as a means of raising money in the debt capital markets, so for infrastructure funding. and increasing the maintenance budget that comes from municipalities. But you cannot always say that the municipalities must increase their maintenance budget. And the mayors were saying to us yesterday, but the subsidies I get from national government are capital subsidies. So I get money to build infrastructure and I don't get money to maintain the infrastructure. We're supposed to raise it ourselves. If we don't have the resources, we're unable to do it. So it requires a rejig of the system so that there's a balance between the capital budgets that we get from national government and the maintenance budgets, and we need an increase in the maintenance portion of the budget. I suppose this is why
it was important to have so many members of national government at this Council of Council of Mayors. Okay, Mr. George.
Well, I think the President has covered the matter quite extensively. The key issue is about the renewal of the IGR, Intergovernmental Relations Fiscal Framework. If this is reviewed, you look at now, Peter, we have 2030 objectives as a country through the National Development Plan. And one of the central tenets of the NDP is about building requisite capacity, building a capable state.
Right.
And I think from any bottom-up building of that capability, you need local government to be strengthened. So many of the redistributive mandates of providing services, building economic infrastructure and maintaining infrastructure is essentially a responsibility of local government. So there has to be a fundamental overhaul of the policy. So one of the sessions yesterday focused on this panel, and the National Executive Committee of SALGA will be able to make specific recommendations around review of this at the next budget forum in September. But I think in our view as local government is that at the heart of this problem is about revisiting the very objectives and policy assumptions that were made around allocations. So we will be pursuing the matter in that context. You go to Makana municipality in the Eastern Cape, infrastructure, like the mayor of Sarah Batman indicates, in many of our small towns, it was built 100 years, 200 years, even to cope for the previous jurisdiction of what was called a town. It's no longer coping. But come the responsibility to expand to other areas. So you've got infrastructure that is providing a much more expansive redistributive responsibility for water, electricity, and is unable to cope. So currently, every allocation around infrastructure, capital grants, there is now a recommendation and a guideline by Treasury that at least 9% of that must be dedicated to maintenance.
Okay, we're running out of time because I'm going to have to change the panel now. But just before we go to the ad break, one question I need to put through to you. It's come from Mr. Maudi Mudzelwana, who says municipalities fail to compile and comply with environmental management plans, which prevents them from proper spending. We have municipalities who have no environmental officers, waste officers who should complement councillors' work. And this also speaks to the Auditor General's general comments in his annual reports that it seems as if there's no consequence management at times, and so that the same failings will keep coming up if there are no consequences. How do we manage that? How do we say, stop people writing in saying you're not complying?
Well, Peter, you would recall that we're here in Cape Town in November 2013, and local government as a sector took a bold decision to deal with two issues. The first issue is to take a lead in the fight against corruption and maladministration in municipalities. And through that, SALGA launched what is now commonly known as Consequence and Accountability Framework. Now, based on that commitment that was lauded across the board, mayors pledging commitment to drive this, we were quite pleased as SALGA to see that in the 2014-2015 audit and the 2015-2016 audit by the Auditor General, there is a clear report that points out that a growing number of our municipalities are taking consequence accountability very seriously. More than 50% of auditees in the previous financial year were reported to have taken action on consequence and accountability. And we're beginning to see this quite across. We may not be pleased as yet until such time that we see that a critical mass of our municipalities, 100%, is actually taking a lead to deal with maladministration and areas where there's glaring lapses of governance. So we did not only hope for that, we also launched what is called oversight mechanism as SALGA in terms of advocating for establishment of municipal public accounts committees. And right across the country, every municipality has got this as assisted by SALGA, and we're beginning to measure the impact of those. So there is an investment around dealing decisively with lack of accountability, and also initiatives around driving consequences for wrongdoing.
All right, so we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed. The President of the South African Local Government Association, Mr. Councillor Parks Tau, and also President of the United Cities and Local Government, UCLG, and also sitting at the UN as well. Thank you very much for joining us, and also Mr. Xolile George, CEO of SALGA. When we come back, we'll have 4 mayors sitting in these chairs, and you'll be able to pose questions through to them. Stay with us for that.